Yeah, I can't help thinking that. I'm thinking him.
Hello. Hey, how's everyone doing? Hey, welcome to the Game Historian panel at Missouri GameCon. It's like an aerobics room.
It's actually a dancing classroom, but hey, I just read the sign outside.
Okay. It's great to be here. I am. How many of you are from Missouri or like live in Missouri or? Okay. Okay. I live in Kansas City, Missouri. So I'm a fellow Missourian. So, actually, I was in Colorado like a month ago, and I was at a grocery store, and the lady saw my license because I was buying beer, and she was like, "Is it pronounced Missouri or Missouri?" I was like, come on, lady. No one says Missouri. Anyway, welcome to the panel. We're gonna have fun today. You guys can see that. Cool. Okay, let's get into it. So this is a monkey. Got this.
The monkey.
The monkey doesn't mean anything. So we're talking about what's new with the show. We're going to get into a live episode of the show. So basically a preview of an upcoming episode of the Game Historian.
Yeah.
What I've been working on for months and months. We're going to play a game called Who Wants to Be a Gamer. It's basically Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but I can't use that name. So then we'll do a Q&A session, and then we'll say our goodbyes. So what's new with the show? Well, I just moved, and it's been a lot of work. Anyone who's familiar with moving knows it's a lot harder than you think it's going to be. I was like, I'll be back and working in like 2 weeks, and it's been a month, and it's still, yeah, it's been a mess. But I have internet again, and I'm all moved in, so I can get back to work. As far as stuff going on this year, there will be a volume 2 of the Blu-ray. There will also be a volume 1 reprint for anyone that missed volume 1. And basically with the pre-orders for volume 2, you can get like a combo pack and get volume 1 and volume 2 together. So that should be out hopefully later this year. Here's some upcoming topics I'm doing. The next episode should be out in like maybe a week or two. It is about a crazy court case I found. I found a case where a 9-year-old sued Nintendo because he was unhappy with Major League Baseball on the NES. And it was made by LJN. Go figure. So that's going to be out in about a week or two. It's a pretty funny story. But I was able to actually call the National Archives and get every single document from that court case. So it's pretty interesting. I'm also working on what I'm going to talk about today, which you'll see in a minute. And I'm also working on the story of Super Mario Brothers 3. So I did Super Mario Brothers 2, might as well do 3, right? Okay, let's get started with this presentation. This topic that I've been working on for the past few months is a game that I guarantee pretty much everyone in here has played. Does anyone want to take a guess? I'll give a hint. Educational. There you go. Yeah. So I've been working on this for the past few months. Going to do a big documentary on the Oregon Trail. Its creators, I've been in touch with the actual creators of the game. Been doing interviews with them. I've been traveling and up to Minnesota and talking to them. So it's pretty exciting. This is kind of the first video I've done where I've sat down with somebody and filmed an interview. So it's pretty interesting stuff. Now, I used to be a history teacher, so of course I do want to talk about the real Oregon Trail, what it was all based on. And it, if you guys live in Missouri, you probably know that Missouri was kind of the jumping off point for the Oregon Trail.
Independence, right?
Yes, sir, Independence, Missouri. It was the longest of many trails heading west. They were created between 1811 and 1840 by fur traders. And then America had this idea of manifest destiny where we're America, we're destined to have more land, so we're just going to keep spreading west. And so that's where all these trails were created, and people started heading out west, and the government was giving away land for basically free if anyone would settle out west. And there were other trails besides the Oregon Trail. There's the California, the Santa Fe, the Mormon Trail. But the actual game is based on the Oregon Trail. The Oregon Trail, let me blow this up, I can barely read my own notes. There we go. First created in 1971 by three men, Don Rawitsch, Paul Dillenberger, and Bill Heinemann. It was used as a tool to teach a course on westward expansion. So 1971 was the very first version of Oregon Trail. Oregon Trail has sold over 64 million copies. That's a lot of copies. It's considered one of the most widely distributed educational games of all time. But despite all those numbers, the creators of Oregon Trail didn't make a dime from that. We'll get more into that later. And it was inducted into the Strong Museum of Play Video Game Hall of Fame in 2016. So, let's move on to the creators. Here are the three original creators of Oregon Trail. There is Don Rawitsch on the left, Bill Heinemann in the middle, and Paul Dillenberger on the right. These three guys went to a small school right outside of Minneapolis. It's called Carleton College. It's a private school. And it was the fall of 1971. They were all going to become teachers. Don Rawitsch was going to be a social studies teacher, Bill Heinemann was going to be a math teacher, and Paul Dillenberger was going to be a math teacher. And so the school put them together in an apartment in Minneapolis, and they were assigned to some public schools in the Minneapolis school system. And so Don Rawitsch was told by his advisor, hey, you're going to teach a class on westward expansion in a few weeks. And Don Rawitsch had some unorthodox methods of teaching. So he would, one time he came in dressed up as Meriwether Lewis from Lewis and Clark, and he had students interview him and ask him questions about their crazy journey. One time he did a mock trial where like the track coach came into the room and fired his starter gun for running laps around the track, and they did like a murder trial, like who did it, and they had to prove that he was guilty. So he liked to do unorthodox things. So he decided, you know what, I'm going to make this a board game. Let's make a board game about the Oregon Trail. So he laid out this huge roll of paper on the coffee table, and he drew this huge map of the United States. And he had cards that each turn the players would draw, and like the card would say, oh, there's a rainstorm, you get held back 2 days. You fell off the wagon, you broke your arm. Stuff like that. So he's making this map on the coffee table, and Bill Heinemann and Paul Dillenberger walk in because they both worked at the same school, and they're like, Don, what are you doing with this giant map of the U.S.? And he says, oh, I'm making a board game about the Oregon Trail. And Bill Heinemann and Paul Dillenberger, as part of their math curriculum, they learned basic programming. And so they looked at the idea, and they looked at each other and they said, you know, this would be a pretty good computer program. You know, it's all based on odds and percentages and numbers. We could make it into a computer program. And so they offered that. And Don Rawitsch said, well, I need it in 2 weeks. And he said, okay, let's do it. So here's some of the original programming of the Oregon Trail. This game was originally just called Oregon. So Don Rawitsch came up with the game rules, and he gave the historical information, and then Bill Heinemann and Paul Dillenberger did all the programming. Bill Heinemann did the main programming. Paul Dillenberger did a lot of the subroutines. So like if you died, what do you want to put on your tombstone? Stuff like that. So the game was written in less than 2 weeks. So how did the game work? This is 1971. This is where computers were giant mainframes. They had their own room with air conditioning, and that's where the program was uploaded to the giant mainframe. How to access the game was to use something like on the left called a teletype machine. Kind of looks like a typewriter. And basically, you didn't have a monitor, you had a giant roll of paper, and it just printed out what you were supposed to see. And these were located in each of the schools, and